Okay, I think the attendees number has stopped going up, so hopefully everyone's everyone's in who wants to be in. I'll tap on my imaginary gavel. I will call to order the meeting of the Verona Plan Commission for Monday, August 3rd, 2020 at 6:32 p.m. We'll begin with the roll.
Commissioner Hankard.
Here.
Mayor Diaz.
Here.
Alderperson Cole.
Here.
Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Commissioner Tucker Long.
Here.
Commissioner Lytle.
Here.
And Commissioner Heinzen is absent and excused.
Great, we have a quorum. Next, we will move on to public comment. And just a quick note on public comment while Mr. Sayer gets ready with the first speaker is that this Plan Commission is kind of a working meeting, so we're expected to work through the list of stuff we have, and that public input is a chance for the public to have an input before we do our work. And so it's not the same as a listening session or a community meeting, but there seems to be a lot of interest on at least one of the topics on the agenda. So I wanted to make sure that it was on the Plan Commission so the public would have a chance to have their input. And also City Council, which is next Wednesday, as opposed to, it's normally on the second and fourth Monday, it's on the Wednesday because of the election. There'll also be a chance for public comment. But with that, Mr. Sayer, did we have some people who are going to speak?
Yes, I have 10 people tonight, so we'll start first with Mike Samuels.
Thank you. I am here tonight to represent the developer NDEV group with regard to the proposal to annex the property at Wayland and Liberty Drive for a new senior center. We have gone through the comments that we've seen from the staff regarding the okay. Okay. We've gone through the comments and we are very pleased to see that they are mostly very favorable. We have two issues that we've identified, and I think I've given some feedback to you. They involve the parking suggestions that have been made and the donation for parkland. I would like the chance to discuss those things with you, but I understand that in addressing the commission, we're limited to 3 minutes. So I don't know how you want to do that. If you want to do it as a question and answer, if you want, how you want to handle discussion of that issue, I just would like you to tell me and I'll be happy to comply. Other than that, I'm prepared to go through any questions that anybody has. We have our operator, Tom Ostrom, available online, and also our architect, Ken Kozakowski, our civil engineers, Jessica Vaughn and Paul Phillips. And I think that's it. So we can answer any questions that you have regarding our plans for development. And I'll leave it to you from that point. But like I said, we would like to be heard on the issues of parking and parkland.
Thank you. We have you under item 9 with the PUD. So when that comes up, if anyone on the Plan Commission has questions, they can ask. And I mean, typically the Plan Commission does have questions. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all really that I had. I'm expecting just the presentation from the Plan Commission.
Thanks, Mike. All right, next up I have Grant. Hey, Grant, I think you were talking and you weren't on yet, so why don't you start over?
Oh, how about that? Can
That's
you hear
good.
me now?
Yes, you're good.
Sorry about that. Grant Elmo from St. Ambrose Academy. We're item 10 on your agenda. Very similar to Mr. Samuels. We have a number of people that are available here registered to speak and available to answer questions with regard to our project. There's a lot of information that you need to take into account. Some of which you've been given, some which you haven't, but again, we're here to try to answer those questions as they come up. We have our architect, Kirk Keller, Wade Wise, our civil engineer, John Biebritz, our traffic engineer, Father Scott Emerson from the parish, and then Ron Trachtenberg, who can speak to some legal issues or legal questions or legal solutions. So again, thank you for the opportunity to go over the proposal and to basically ask whatever questions you need to better understand it. We believe we have a solution that'll work, and we're very excited about the opportunity for this project in Verona. So thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Okay, next up I have Father Scott.
Now we're unmuted. Good.
You're good.
Thank you. Yeah, I just represent St. Christopher Parish. I was the administrator there for the last 3 months and kind of got this, or have been in communication with our parish leadership. And I know you've received a number of comments from parishioners, but to know that the parish is very much in support of St. Ambrose and working with them to come to a solution to bring them to the parish. And if you have any comments or questions in regards to the parish's standpoint and our relationship with St. Ambrose going forward, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Next up I have John.
Oh, there we go.
Johnny there?
I'm here. Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Great. This refers to item number 10 as well. Just want to make everyone aware that we completed a traffic impact study dated June 2nd, 2020, and that has been submitted. We've been working with the city traffic engineer, Jess Billmeyer, through the process and developed what we feel is a workable solution for both the opening year and the expected maximum capacity of the school. The workable solution was a single access driveway to Main Street. Location of this access driveway is recommended to be either within the Silent Street reservation where adequate gaps in the Main Street traffic stream are present. A roadway or driveway connection to Silent Street is not recommended for vehicle traffic, but only for emergency vehicles as a gated driveway. Again, the recommendation is for a separate driveway within the Silent Street reservation to Main Street as a full access driveway where adequate gaps in the Main Street traffic stream are present. So I'll be available throughout the meeting with any specific questions regarding traffic on this item. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Next up, we have Wade.
Good evening, everyone. Wade Wise, Wiser Engineering. We are part of the St. Ambrose team as it relates to both professional surveying services as well as professional civil engineering services. We've been working in the background for quite some time now here, creating the certified survey map that would divide the property. So certainly in the process of doing that, as well as identifying civil design solutions for sanitary, water, and storm sewer connections. The big one being always stormwater management and how we plan to meet the city's ordinances, as well as convey safely water downstream. So as part of the project team, similar to John's statement, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have and go over any civil design aspects. Thank you.
Thanks, Wade. Okay, next up I have Terry Smith. You gotta unmute yourself, Terry.
Okay, can you hear me?
You're good.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting me take a few minutes to talk to you. My mother is a resident that's to the east of this proposed site for your agenda number 10. And she is definitely against this, as many of the neighbors on the east side are. And a lot of this has to be with lack of information and communication by both the parish to its parishioners, the residents, and also St. Ambrose. I'm hoping that the Planning Commission will take a close look and do their due diligence in looking at codes, ordinances, the site plan, what's proposed. The site is too small. One main thing is the water drainage. And Wade said that he believes they have a solution. However, nothing has been presented. There is a major water problem flooding residents' property. And I don't see how building this school is gonna help anything with that drainage, only compound it. There are many residents that have problems with this, and I hope the Planning Commission really looks at everything in regards to trespassing, lighting, noise, snow removal, safety issues, both for the students, the residents. The property value will diminish greatly, and I'll be a future homeowner there on that property. And I have great concerns, and I hope you will listen to the residents and not fast track this and sidestep things. So thank you for listening to me, but please do your due diligence. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Next up, we have Mike.
Okay.
Mike, you there?
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. I had 3 questions. Basically, the first one, they're all in regards to the St. Ambrose project. The first one was there was a lot of, in the previous meeting with St. Ambrose Online, they showed the floor plans for their proposal and there was no cafeteria shown on that. So the word I'm hearing on the streets is that they're planning to use the St. Christopher Parish cooks for funerals and for the existing school that's going on there to do the cooking for the St. Ambrose students. My question is, has anyone talked to the senior volunteer women that do that? The second question I had was that they're planning to utilize the existing high school, middle school athletic fields for current use by the St. Ambrose students. Has anyone talked to the school district about this? And what are the plans for the utilizations of the athletic fields as well as The interior buildings such as gymnasiums, because that wouldn't be until phase 3 of the St. Ambrose plan. If they use the gymnasiums, who's going to be doing cleanup and how is that going to get paid for? And I can't remember what the third one was, sorry. I'm sorry?
The parishioners, let them know that the parishioners are not all in favor.
Okay, and my wife is in the background saying that the parishioners aren't necessarily all in favor of doing this.
So don't be misled.
So those are my questions. If you can answer those tonight, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, next up I have Ron. Oh, Ron, you're muted, Ron.
Am
There
I
you go.
unmuted now?
You're good. That's perfect.
Okay, thank you. I'm not in San Francisco. That's my background. My name is Ron Trachtenberg. I'm an attorney with Furman and Dodge. I do land use law, and I'm here to answer any technical questions that may arise on the legal side of San Ambrose project, including the possible use of Silent Drive as an access point. The only point I want to make, it's been my pleasure over the years to represent church and other religious institutions. My last two major ones are St. Paul's University Catholic Center on State Street, the Chabad House, which is the Orthodox Jewish Student Center on Gilman Street, both in downtown Madison. I know there are issues and questions about, the best way to the traffic concerns and stormwater concerns. We believe we have a workable solution. In balancing the good against the perfect, the only thing I would ask you to do is please take into account the institutional value of institutions like St. Ambrose that it has for the basically broader community and for the Verona community, and take that into account also. With that, if there's any questions that arise when we get to number 10, I would be glad to answer them.
All right. Thanks, Ron. Next up, I have Kirk.
There, hopefully that works. I'd like to thank, first of all, I'd like to thank Catherine Holt, because the information that you have in front of you is very much a work in progress. The site concept plan needed to be created to allow the conversation with the traffic impact analysis to occur. So that was the first document that came about. Then next in line came the traffic impact analysis, which left the open discussion about Silent Street and access onto Main Street. And then lastly, and I don't know, Ms. Holt, if you had a chance to share, we provided some concept floor plans, and each one of those were created at different stages as we moved along here. And so there were some good questions brought up by some of the other people who spoke about the what are the functions inside the building. I look forward to answering those. We did enjoy a listening session where I recorded approximately 30 different questions that we took from the public in an attempt to answer, respond to issues such as dealing with water issues that are on a site that has been basically undeveloped for all time, and the advances that we can bring. And I look forward to answering your questions on all levels. Thank you.
Thank you. The last one I have is a David Steinen. I don't see David. I don't see you in the audience. If you're there, raise your hand virtually, and you can do that by, I believe, under the More tab. Luke, do you see him? Okay.
What was the name again? Maybe he's
Da-
on.
David Steinen. He had emailed me around 6 o'clock tonight, so it was a fresh email.
Gotcha. I don't see anyone with their hand raised.
I don't see any hands up either.
All right, with that, I guess we will move on to item 4, which is approval of the minutes. Display. Okay. Approval of the minutes from the July 6th, 2020 Plan Commission meeting. Questions, comments, motions?
Move approval.
Motion by Alder Cole. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Tucker Long. Last chance for corrections to the minutes. Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the July 6th, 2020 Plan Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we will move on to item 5, which is regarding a conditional use permit for a health and wellness facility located at 1155 Clary Street. Before we go into the public hearing, can we get a brief overview on the topic, Mr. Sayer?
Sure, this is a request tonight for a conditional use permit to allow a health and wellness center to be located at 1155 Clarity Street. This use is classified as an indoor commercial entertainment land use and requires a conditional use permit in the suburban industrial zoning district. As part of this, we did send out letters to all adjacent property owners within 200 feet. We posted a public hearing notice sign on the property, and there was also a public hearing notice placed in the Verona Press. The Plan Commission tonight makes a recommendation on this item to the Common Council. The next Common Council meeting is next Wednesday. So tonight, this is a potential recommendation from the Common Council.
Thank you. Just to keep things moving, I will move we open a public hearing regarding the conditional use permit for a health and wellness facility located at 1155 Clarity Street. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Lytle. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. And we are in the public hearing at 6:54 on this specific topic. Did we have any speakers on this, Mr. Sayer?
No, we did not.
All right. A motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Alder Cole. Is there a second?
Second.
Should we just clarify to people how to raise their hands if they want to speak, just to make sure?
Sure, we notice on the agenda that if they do want to speak, they should sign up.
Oh, okay.
So that's the intent.
Never
is
mind
to have
then.
them signed up. So we have taken them before, but I don't see any hands raised. So
Perfect. No problem.
And I think the last time we tried to promote someone who had raised their hand, they weren't actually there. I think they had bumped their computer or something, and so we just sat there awkwardly, being like, "Do you want to talk?" Sorry. So there was a motion by Alder Cole, seconded by Commissioner Powers. All those in favor of closing the public hearing regarding this topic, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And the public hearing is closed at 6:55 p.m. Mr. Sayer.
thank you. So once again, the request tonight is for the conditional use permit at 1155 Clarity Street. The property in question is located on the screen before you, highlighted in yellow. The applicant would be utilizing the building for a juice bar and then also for some fitness kind of wellness space. I believe they have a basketball court in there as well. So it's that indoor commercial entertainment land use where they're doing some training there, but then they also have a kind of food service type component, very small, just from a shake standpoint. But they would be kind of having that juice shake area as well too. As part of this, staff reviewed the parking for the whole development in that area. The site has sufficient parking to accommodate this request. There are a total of 105 parking spaces on the site. Currently, 86 of those spaces are utilized per the zoning ordinance. So staff has no concerns with the parking on the property. As with all conditional use permits, we went through the general and specific findings of fact, and we find that it does meet the zoning ordinance requirements. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission recommend approval of the conditional use permit to allow for an indoor commercial entertainment land use at 1155 Clarity Street. And I'd be happy to answer any questions from the Plan Commission.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on this conditional use permit? Commissioner Tucker Long.
So I just was curious why we require a conditional use permit for this kind of use for this. Is there any history to that, or?
It's been that way since the ordinance was drafted. So anytime there's a restaurant, anytime there's a fitness use, it's considered an indoor commercial entertainment land use. That is a provision in our code that is a catch-all to a lot of different uses. The vast majority of the conditional uses the Plan Commission reviews, I'd say about 90%, if not more, are probably indoor commercial entertainment land uses. So anytime there's a fitness use, anytime there's a food use, and this one hits both those boxes, it drops into that general indoor commercial entertainment land use category. I think as part of the new zoning code rewrite, the intent is to start trying to break these out and not be so broad in these categories. But the history, I'm not sure it's always been that way since the code was adopted. I'm not sure why.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions, comments, or motions from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Tucker Long.
So I move that we recommend to the Common Council that they approve the conditional use permit to allow an indoor commercial entertainment land use at 1155 Clarity Street.
Second. Anything to add, Commissioner Tucker Long? Motion before the body. Questions, comments on the motion? Commissioner Lytle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just clarifying, you had a list of tenants in the building currently. Did you mention, is this the last vacant suite in that building, or is that building what percent occupied roughly?
Mr. Sayer?
We've got a vacant space of approximately 2,500 square feet. So there's still a small space that's left in there. So that's the last space, that's my understanding.
So this does not, there's no indication that this is any kind of pushing us up against the parking requirements. We wouldn't see something coming in that would really push things over.
No, we've got zero res, we've got Everlight Solar, and then we've got a couple kind of fitness uses in there that run more on a, you sign up for the class basis. So it's pretty self-contained in that area. And every time I've gone by, I'll be honest, the parking has been completely empty. So no, we don't anticipate any parking issues at all.
Great, thank you.
Other questions or comments on the motion? I'll just say I think it's good to see that space fill up, and I wish them the best of luck. Last chance for comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council that they grant a conditional use permit for a health and wellness facility located at 1155 Clarity Street, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. That motion passes. That will go on to the council next week. Next up, we have item 6, which is discussion and possible action regarding site plan review for Big Sky Engineering to allow for exterior improvements to the building and grounds for 515 Commerce Parkway. Ms. Holt.
Thank you. Big Sky Enterprises LLC has purchased the existing building located at 515 Commerce Parkway, which is shown in red on the slide, and this is zoned urban industrial. The building housed Think It, Ink It, and the Duluth Trading Company. The property is surrounded by industrial buildings and to the south, Military Ridge State Trail. The footprint of the building will not change. Access will remain the same to the building from Commerce Parkway. The property has 51 parking spaces, which is more than the current facility of Big Sky, located at 429 Venture Court. The application is before the Plan Commission tonight as Big Sky is updating the exterior of the building. Currently, the building is brown, as seen in the bottom photo from Google. The applicant is proposing to update the exterior of the building as seen in the top rendering with metal panels, honed brick base, and accent metal awnings. A cedar fence is proposed to screen the mechanical system located at the front of the building. The applicant may add additional wall pack lighting to the exterior if needed. A landscaping plan was never submitted. The applicant has stated that they want to remove some of the overgrowth that blocks the front of view of the building, as you can see in the comparison between the two slides. However, staff does not know how many trees or plants will be removed and what will be replaced. Overall, staff is supportive of the proposed facade improvements to the existing building and is supportive of Big Sky Engineering expanding in Fresno. Staff recommends the Plan Commission approve the site plan for Big Sky Engineering located at 515 Commerce Parkway with the following condition. Prior to planting landscaping, the applicant and staff will coordinate the species of plants and locations. Staff and the applicant are here to answer any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on site plan review?
I have a
Commissioner
question.
Hankard.
So it seemed unclear about the what upgrades were going to take place to the other sides of the building. This is a minor comment, but when I'm going along the Military Ridge Trail, that brown building kind of blends right in right now. You don't even see it, which I find to be a bonus. But a big bright blue building, like the one that just got built on the corner nearby, is very visible and, I don't know, stands out as what it is, a metal building. So if it's all the same to them, if they want to keep the, I guess it would be the south and east sides brown and save some paint, that'd be fine with me. I don't think I'm actually gonna say that's a requirement, because I think a business owner should be able to do reasonable things to their own building, but that's my 2 cents.
Other questions, comments, or motions on the site plan? Commissioner Lytle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The discussion around getting reviews for or coordinating with staff for additional landscaping was just unclear on with a freshen up of an existing facade that they have planned. Is there still a check, suppose, and I see good reason why they would want some more visibility for the front of their building, but do we still check back and make sure they have the adequate number of landscaping points for that? I mean, I know there's a ton of native, a huge portion of the lot is probably not buildable, but are we, suppose they decide the best thing to do is just to clear out all the trees that are on the north side of the building. Have they, by nature of the backyard, already met all their requirements so they could do that without any checks from staff? Long way to ask the question in terms of, how drastically could their landscaping change without, needing to comply with some landscape point system?
I can take that one initially. I think one, if you kind of look around that sign, obviously whatever that is completely overgrown. Second part is you see at least one ash tree that's in the Google kind of the Google's photo there. I know the applicant is raising his hand right now. Would you like him to help answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay, let me promote Kane.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. So yes, right now the initial plan is to keep all landscaping as is, removing essentially the north side of everything. That way we can open up that building for construction. Two, that way it kind of clears everything up. There's a lot of overgrowth. The other concern with that is that it's kind of heaving the parking lots and spots because there is so much growth there. So kind of preventative maintenance in a way. It's also rubbing on the building, storms, things like that. They're getting sound transferred. within. So that's the initial plan. Future work is going to be done with Bruce Company. Hopefully that's a future submission to you guys. We do look to kind of spruce up the front there, create kind of a whole new envelope of the building there on the front to give it, you know, more curb appeal than what it is. Big Sky, they're a high-tech engineering firm, and kind of relaying that to the exterior is ultimately the goal.
Thank you. As long as they're out there, any other questions for the applicant? Seeing no further hands, thank you for addressing that.
Thanks, Kane.
Yes.
All right, still on site plan review. Questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Lytle.
Thank you. I will make a motion that we approve the site plan for Big Sky Engineering for exterior improvements for the building and grounds at 515 Commerce Parkway, subject to the one condition that was listed in the staff report in terms of reviewing landscaping plans.
Motion to approve the site plan with the conditions specified in the packet. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Powers. Anything to add, Commissioner Lytle?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Motion before the body. Questions, comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the site plan for Big Sky Engineering located at 515 Commerce Parkway with the condition in the packet which says prior to planting landscaping, the applicant and staff will coordinate the species of plantings and locations. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, we will move on to item 7, which is a discussion of possible action regarding an initial review for 2 commercial buildings with drive-throughs that would contain a total of approximately 8,180 square feet of commercial space located north of 233 Wildcat Way. Ms. Holt.
Thank you. The property is located south of West Verona Avenue, as shown in red on the slide. Currently, Quick Trip owns this property, as well as the gas station that is under construction to the south of the property. The property is zoned urban commercial. The applicant will propose a certified survey map to create 2 separate lots for each of the buildings with a shared parking agreement, shared access agreement, and a stormwater management easement agreement at a later date. Access to the site will be shared with Quick Trip from West End Circle and Wildcat Way to the south, with a shared access agreement between the 2 parties. A sidewalk is proposed to extend from the existing sidewalk along West End Circle through the property, connecting West End Circle to Building A and to Building B. Direct pedestrian access from West Verona Avenue cannot be accommodated due to the grade change and the city outlet in front of the property. The applicant has provided 61 parking stalls for the proposal, which is below the minimum parking requirements per the zoning ordinance. Staff recommends the applicant determine if there will be enough parking in this area for their potential tenants, as parking will be a premium. As proposed, the applicant would be requesting an exemption to the parking requirements, as it is currently designed with only 2 potential tenants known at this time. As mentioned in the applicant's narrative, this is the second submission for the conceptual plan. Modifications were made after it was known that the right-of-way for Half Mile Road cannot be vacated towards their property. So instead of getting a larger piece of property, then they thought it remained the same. The applicant is proposing a 2,200 square foot building shown in purple close to West End Circle, with the drive-through wrapping the building, and a 5,980 square foot building for a bank shown in orange with tellers and/or ATMs. As discussed in the Plan Commission staff report, the property is located in the downtown design and use overlay zoning district. The overlay zone is to take advantage of the gateway to Verona aspect of Verona Avenue. The staff report quotes several sections of the ordinance that focuses on the overlay zone. Some of the important ones are buildings shall be designed to include significant amounts of windows, doorways, and architectural variety facing Verona Avenue. The purple building fronts onto Half Mile Road and West End Circle as it's currently shown. Parking areas, drive aisles, and drive-up windows are prohibited between the building and the front property line. And for for corner lots, the side street property line. Exceptions may be varied from the approval of a planned development district. As in this conceptual plan, staff does not have building renderings. However, the applicant is proposing to increase the height of the retaining wall shown as a red line on the slide by 3 to 4 feet above the grade to shield the drive-through view from West Verona Avenue. Staff recommends adding a wrought iron fence to mimic other fencing in Verona, and it happens to be out my back window right there, if you can see it, on the existing retaining wall. Staff is comfortable with the proposed uses and development on the property. Staff believes with the grades from West Verona Avenue to this property that the additional retaining wall height and landscaping would be sufficient screening for the drive-through from West Verona Avenue, meeting the intent of the ordinance. Staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials and provide feedback to the applicant, as well as feedback regarding their preferred drive-through locations with the focus on the downtown overlay zone. With that said, staff and the applicant are available to answer questions.
Thank you for that. And so we're just looking for feedback on this one, correct?
Yes.
Great. I will bring it before the Plan Commission. Do any Plan Commissioners have any feedback on this project? Commissioner Powers, then Commissioner Tucker Long.
I just had a question. I'm probably just misunderstanding it. When they're talking about increasing the height of the retaining wall, won't that cover up any architectural detail that they're trying to show for like the windows and everything facing West Verona Avenue? Can't really do both, can you? If you're going to hide the cars, you're not really going to show any of the building, right?
Ms. Holt?
You'd probably, more than likely, you would see the roof line and whatever after that 3 feet. So you'd cover the car because of the slope, add that 3 feet on top of that, on top of the car height, basically. And then whatever's remaining, that's what you would see of the building. So probably, depending on how tall they're proposing the buildings, they didn't go into how tall that would be at this time.
Commissioner Tucker Long.
So I guess my question is, looking at this drive-through, I mean, just with the number of example cars they have in it already, it looks like the drive-through for the West End Circle closest building could potentially block people from leaving from the other drive-through from the bank. And so I'm curious if there could be a better way to sort of separate those drive-throughs so that the one, I mean, especially if that ends up being like fast food or coffee or something, with all the high schoolers going through in their cars, that drive-through could get pretty busy, especially, you know, during lunch times or whatever, you know, or right after school. And I'd hate to see the other drive-through get blocked off.
Mr. Sayer or Ms. Holt, want to take a crack at that?
I think we can, yeah, I'll go. I think we can, I was unmuted, sorry, Catherine. I think we can, the applicant's here and you know, I think we can pass that along to the applicant. I think a lot of it's going to depend on where the message board is. So you have the window in the one spot. I think it's going to depend on the stacking behind the message board. So I think it's a detail, well, kind of once we get into this more, we could probably look at more closely. But we can also talk with the applicant as well. I mean, you could potentially, I'm just talking out loud, you know, potentially shift building B a little bit as well. I mean, there's ways you can still adjust the site. So yeah, I think it's a good comment. We can take that back with to the applicant.
Further feedback from the Plan Commission. Alder Cole.
I just had a question. The proposed barrier between the two, is that a physical barrier or is that just like a property line type situation?
That line?
Yeah, yeah, it's a proposed boundary. Is there going to be like a physical barrier that could possibly separate the two as far as helping out with the drive-through situation, or is that just boundary line?
It'd be a property line.
Okay.
Further feedback from the Plan Commission. Commissioner Tucker Long.
I guess just one more comment on the drive-through. In looking at this, I guess I would rather see, they have a whole bunch of like the slanted parking spaces by the pond. And I guess I'm wondering why we would want slanted parking there, because you have to walk through the drive-through. I don't know if that's going to be like employee parking or something to try to keep the employee cars out of the way. But I guess I'd rather see, since it's going to be shared parking, you know, slide the building over, have just the drive-through on that side, and have all the parking more in the center. Because I'd rather not have people parking and then having to walk through the drive-through.
Alder Cole.
Is there something on there for like bike parking, or because I'm again so close to the high school, if kids are coming down like on their bikes, I personally would like to see a safe dedicated area for people with their bikes.
Ms. Holt.
The applicant did not put bike parking in it at this time. They were really focused on trying to figure out the spacing of the building, and with the downtown overlay zone, if the drive-through would be acceptable in the locations that they're proposing. But in subsequent plans, they will be providing other things such as the bike parking, and they're well aware of what we recommended for Quick Trip and how the pedestrian and the bicycle flows to that area is very important to the Plan Commission and the council.
Okay, thank you.
I'll call on myself and say, yeah, I completely agree with that. I want to see, you know, bicycle parking, and definitely I want to hopefully look at you know, it's still early, but a future plan, and see that for the kind of flow for people walking or biking is easy and safe, and you know, in line kind of with what Commissioner Tucker Long said. It's you don't have people walking through drive-through traffic and things like that. I would also just like to add my 2 cents on the landscaping, and I think, you know, it would be nice to see it screened with kind of a green screen of trees, you know, potentially eastern white pine and Canadian hemlock, or something of that nature. I think would be good on top of a retaining wall. You know, I'm not personally the biggest fan of drive-throughs outside of Culver's, but you know, considering where we're at with the pandemic and everything, I totally understand if businesses want to build so people don't have to leave their car, because I really don't feel like leaving my car when I go out either. Yeah. Any other feedback from the Plan Commission? Mr. Sayer.
So this will be on the council agenda next Wednesday as well, since it's a concept review.
Ms. Holt, did we cover all the feedback that staff was interested in?
Yes, you did.
Great. And we only meet once a month, so I wouldn't want something to get missed and have people have to wait. So unless anyone has any other further feedback, we'll move on to the next item. Going once, going twice. All right. We will move on to item 8, which is a discussion and possible action regarding a planned unit development, aka PUD, concept plan review for a 1-story, 1,280 square foot addition to the existing commercial building located at 517 Half Mile Road. Ms. Holt.
So Atkins Bike Shop is located at 517 Half Mile Road and is zoned urban commercial, and it is also in the downtown design and use overlays district. You can see it here in yellow, and we were just to the west earlier in the previous presentation. The applicant is requesting to expand the existing building to the south. The existing building is shown in gray on the diagram, with the addition in orange. The 1,280 square foot addition meets all of the setback requirements except for the rear setback. The applicant is requesting feedback for a rear setback of from 25 feet in the zoning ordinance to 18 feet. If the exemption was not requested, the applicant would have submitted an initial review and a site plan. Instead, the applicant wants to continue with the rear exemption as requested. This requires a concept plan, general development plan, and a precise implementation plan. The concept plan is the one we're reviewing tonight. Access will continue from Half Mile Road. Based on the applicant's site map, the parking area may be expanded with the addition towards the south. If this expansion occurs, staff recommends the applicant stripe the parking stalls in the parking lot. However, this is not recommended if the parking stays as it is today. Staff has no concerns with bicycle parking. Conceptual renderings were included in the packet. The proposed building on the top of the slide will match the existing building, creating a seamless addition. Staff is comfortable with an addition to the existing building on the property. Staff recommends the applicant discuss their proposal with the neighbors. Staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials and provide feedback to the applicant. The applicant understands that this is the conceptual plan, and in the next iteration, more details would be required, such as the landscaping plan and other aspects of this. Staff and the applicant are here to answer any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments on the concept plan that we're looking at?
Hey, Luke, the applicant has, I think, his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there's something to clarify, can promote them into the meeting if they want to introduce themselves.
Catherine, is the applicant Mark, just to confirm before I promote?
Mark is the engineer from Cleary Building, so he is the applicant.
Thank you. Mark, you there? Mark? Last chance, Mark. Luke?
Yeah, I mean, we can see your hand, Mark. But is your audio working? Because you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. All right. Well, let's continue if we can get it sorted out.
Okay.
We'll try. Anyhow, feedback on the proposal, because of course for this one we are just providing feedback on the submitted materials. Commissioner Hankert.
Thank you. I mean, my thoughts are this is a great business in town, and they're asking for a setback in the back 40 next to a trucking facility, et cetera. So I agree that they should chat with their neighbors. It's always a good idea, but short of that, I would be fully supportive of this project.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Lytle.
There, I got myself unmuted. Thank you. Pretty much echo Commissioner Hankert's comments, but sort of on topic, sort of off topic. Would we expect any way to streamline this process with changes to the zoning code? You know, a setback variance seems like a strange thing to have to go through a PUD process, but maybe that's what's available to us, and that's all that will be available to us. Thank you.
Mr. Sayer or Ms. Holt want to take a crack at general comment, or is that just something we should take under advisement and talk about it in the future?
I don't have a good answer. I forget what we had in the draft ordinance. I forget if it's 25 feet or if it's 20 feet. I want to say it's not 18 feet. So from a strictly setback point in the new code, no, you still have to have some process in place. Now, we had some conversations initially with the consultant about situations like this where you have a setback type issue of, is there a better way of doing it versus having the PUD process? We haven't gotten to that portion of the rewrite. That's more kind of in the administrative section of processes where you get into conditional uses, roles, responsibilities, a little bit of plan commission. That's more of the process category. So I don't have a good answer for you, but we had raised that as a, how can we avoid this in the future? Because we've had a few like this over the years, and they're unproductive, I think, for everybody. And we give them a few ideas, and I guess we'll kind of see what they come up with.
Further questions or comments on this proposal? I will just add just to echo the two previous comments. Yeah, I think this looks great, and I mean, obviously you should talk to your neighbors and see what they have to say. But I'm glad that business seems like it's doing well, and I look forward to seeing the real plan so we can improve it. Last chance for feedback. Ms. Holt, did we cover everything?
You did.
Not a ton to this one. With that, we'll move on to item 9, which is a discussion and possible action regarding a plan unit development PUD concept plan review for a 118 unit senior housing development comprised of 60 units assisted living and 58 units of assisted memory care located adjacent to 1100 Wayland Road. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. So the request today is just a concept plan to talk about the proposed 118 unit senior housing facility. That'd be comprised of 60 assisted living units and 58 assisted memory care units. This project is currently located in the town of Verona. So there's a long kind of process for it to go through before it actually would be potentially approved by the city. That process includes a pre-development review agreement, urban service area amendments. This property is not located within our USA, which means we cannot extend sewer and water to the property until the Regional Planning Commission, CARPC, approves that request. It would take an annexation agreement, ultimately annexation, zoning of the property, most likely a plan unit development, a land division, and potentially a conditional use permit. So it's a long kind of process to get through. But the first step is to kind of meet with the Plan Commission and Council, have a conversation of, is there interest in developing the property? Is there interest in kind of the general use the applicant's proposing here tonight? And then from a staff level standpoint, trying to get direction of, should we move forward or should we not move forward with working with the developer? So that's kind of why they get a concept review before both the Plan Commission and the Council. The property itself is actually located within the city's southeast neighborhood plan. The property is generally highlighted on white, the white circle there on the screen before you. It is in an area that's identified as a non-residential area. This is just north of the ACS building that's being built on Wayland Road and Liberty Drive. It's also just north of the well site. The city just built a new well on Wayland Road. So it is located within our southeastern neighborhood plan. The plan itself talks a lot about creating jobs, employment opportunities, manufacturing development.
Did we lose you, Adam?
Did you lose me? Or
Yeah, you kind of phased in, at least for me, kind of phased in and out a bit.
Oh, wow. That's the great area. Okay, well, that's the first. All right.
Last 20 seconds, if you want to repeat it.
We'll start going. Yeah, no, sorry about that. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you, Catherine. Was that on your end too? Okay, I'm at City Hall. I'm surprised. Okay, so Southeast Neighborhood Plan. It's in the Southeast Neighborhood Plan. Office uses are planned around 18151. Generally, the non-residential category is obviously non-residential uses such as business park, light manufacturing, warehousing, etc. The applicant is obviously looking at that senior facility. There is a transition area just east of this property, which is in blue on the screen, light blue on the screen before you. The transition area is intended to kind of transition from the residential uses to the more of the non-residential business type uses. I think one of the challenges that as we kind of looked at this is the plan is very heavy about what they want to see in the Liberty Park area and also in the Verona Technology Park. As they get north of Whalen Road, it's not as explicit of what they're looking for. I think from a staff level standpoint of, as we looked at this, the request might take a comprehensive plan amendment, but it also might make some sense to not try to put a large concentration of, say, warehouses or business with heavy truck use on Whalen Road, especially in this area. It's not exactly ideal to kind of get to 18151 and the ramps. You'd have to head kind of west on Whalen and south on PB or north on PB, but there's not a direct kind of highway access point here. So I think from a strictly use standpoint, staff is kind of open to the conversation here as more of a residential type institution type use. It seems like it provides a nice transition from the highway, nice transition from the projects that will be located on the highway that potentially could be taller and block the views of this area. But it potentially kind of fits into kind of maybe a better transition for this whole kind of area of the city. So we're obviously open to the conversation of looking at this kind of just because it might make some sense long term, especially with Whalen Road and the condition of that. Speaking of that, the transportation of the project, as part of this, the applicant would need to extend Liberty Drive for the project. There would be no direct access provided from Whalen Road. They would need to dedicate right away, and they would be fronting on Whalen Road. They'd also have to add sidewalks on Liberty Drive and also Whalen Road as well, so providing some additional sidewalk connections there. Another piece of this as well, which I don't think we touched much on the staff report, is they'd be purchasing approximately, I think, 15, 20 acres of land. And the one question or issue we have to kind of work through with the applicant is going to be providing a future kind of east-west road somewhere through this property. There are parcels to the east of the site that we want to make sure are not landlocked long-term because they will not get access from Whalen Road. So we'll need to work kind of with the applicant on where's the best spot to locate that road from a development standpoint, but then also from a long-term planning standpoint too. The applicant is proposing 90 parking stalls. I know that was a point that the applicant was looking for clarification on. Staff did provide the applicant with a comment that we'd like to see underground parking on this site. It's a pretty common thing that I think the Plan Commission is familiar with, but that was a requirement for Knoll Manor, which is on the kind of the north side of town. That is an independent and memory assisted living facility. We think providing that underground is an amenity for the people living there, but it also then cuts down the impervious surface on the property as well. So that's a request that staff has made to the applicant, but I would encourage the Plan Commission to weigh in on that, provide comments and feedback to the applicants on the parking. Once again, the design of the building, there are conceptual designs that were included in the submittal. These are very high level kind of drawings. I think initially staff doesn't have any initial concerns with it. They're looking at stone, high quality materials. So staff will continue to work with the applicant, but initially I think they're probably on the right track as we've looked at this. This property is in the town, as I said previously. So we do have a boundary agreement with the town that does give the city the ability to annex the property. So this has potential to annex into the city. So with that, once again, staff is open and receptive to kind of looking at this property from a development standpoint. I know the applicant was looking for feedback tonight. The one comment the applicant made was regarding parkland dedication. That's typically an item that we discuss and negotiate as part of an annexation agreement. I think that's typically also with the council as well. So we do have parkland dedication requirements for developments, and if those developments can't meet a dedication requirement, they have to pay a fee in lieu of that dedication. And that's something that, I think is a more appropriate conversation, most likely for the Common Council as part of an annexation agreement. From a staff standpoint on that topic, my understanding is, and I'd have to look into it more, but I believe Knoll Manor paid that, provided dedication, and also paid a fee. But that's something that we can look into with the applicant, but that for a similar type use, they dedicated and paid a fee with it. But it's something we can, like I said, explore further with the applicant. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials. Specifically, I think what we're looking for is potentially on here is even recommending even towards the council passing a resolution to moving forward with the USA, I'd like some direction if the Plan Commission is comfortable moving forward with that USA. And then also, I think more additional feedback on the parking as the applicant stated during public comment.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments? As Mr. Sayer pointed out, this project has a long way to go, and we're in the feedback phase, and so now is the time. Alder Cole.
So just for clarification, the very first thing that really needs to happen is CARPC has to approve this before anything else can happen. Is that right?
They don't have to prove it immediately. I think the first thing that would happen is if, after this meeting, it would go to council. Council's comfortable with us moving forward with the developer. They would need a pre-development review agreement. Once we have that in place, we could potentially start working on that urban service area amendment. We could also be in conjunction working on an annexation agreement at the same time. So there's going to be a few things probably happening all at the same time, including, CARPC and the annexation agreement. But ultimately, yeah, CARPC is going to have to sign off on it.
Could I clarify one point, Mr. Sayer? Now, technically, my understanding of state law is that CARPC needs to review it, and that after a certain amount of time, it just automatically gets approved.
It automatically goes to the DNR, I believe.
And the DNR too.
DNR has ultimate authority.
Okay. Further questions or comments or feedback on this plan? Commissioner White.
Thank you. I appreciate the information staff provided. I don't think at this stage these questions are directed to the applicant that they need to answer, but I do agree with staff that the provision of some underground parking makes sense and is consistent with what we've asked other similar facilities. If the type of senior care facility they're proposing is different enough from Knoll Manor and some of the others that they don't anticipate that many of the residents being drivers, then that's worth further discussion. But I agree that it doesn't, it makes sense to be consistent, even though this is sort of right now out more greenfield part of the city, or soon to be part of the city, we hope. And then the other question for staff was the north side of the property. They show an access road. I know we're looking at a very early stage, but if we're hoping for dedication or a future street to run east and west there, would it make more sense to look at them building half of that street to serve as their access road rather than having two east-west roads that close together and creating that much additional impervious surface?
Yeah, I think from a staff level standpoint, that's something we'd want to consider as well. So the access drives, my understanding, is more from a fire protection standpoint from the fire department to make sure if there was a fire event there, they'd have access to all sides of the building. But that's something we, as part of the conversation with the applicant, we can take a look at and see where potentially that road is going to fall on the property. Whether it's at that red line in the screen before you, or whether it's kind of further to the right at the black dash line from where it goes from brown to blue.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Additional feedback from the Plan Commission. Commissioner Hanker.
Thank you. Well, you know, my parents live in a facility like this, and I was just there. I've spent a fair amount of time there, and they're relatively benign. They don't generate that much traffic that I can tell. They don't. It's just very benign. Like, so it's a little close to the highway. If you had normal single-family residents there, maybe those people would be complaining about noise. But these facilities, you tend to be inside. It's air conditioned 24/7, 365. So they're not going to really care about the highway. Doesn't impact Wayland. Maybe instead of parkland, you get them to dedicate a right of way for some road. So I don't know. On the surface, seems to fit in reasonably well with the long-term plan down there. That's all I have.
Additional feedback from the Plan Commission. Commissioner Tucker-Long.
I guess I'd still like to see some sort of parkland designated around it, just so that, you know, the people who can get outside have some place to go close by. I don't know, that might be nice. But also I'm just kind of wondering, like, it's pretty far into the, I mean, it's not in the transition area, it's pretty far into the non-residential area, but we're talking about putting a bunch of people living there. And I'm wondering if that just kind of like negates the plan, or you know, messes that up for other businesses that may be interested in going there, or, you know, discount some of the stuff we might want to do with that area in the future. Because I mean, it's not even on the edge of the transitional, you know what I mean? It's sort of in the middle there. So.
Mr. Sayer, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. It probably would. I think our goal for 2020 was to start working on the East Neighborhood Plan. COVID wrecked that, to be honest with you. So as part of that, we wanted to look at kind of this whole area again and take a closer look at it. But no, I don't disagree with you. That would probably negate a lot of that brown in that area. I think the real question as we look at this whole area is just, you know, between that Wayland and Grandview corridor, is that really where we want to have potentially, you know, non-residential office type uses, manufacturing uses? And I don't know. I kind of struggle with that a little bit, just because the highway access isn't great in this area. That kind of goes back to the whole east side plan, is where we wanted to look at if and when is it ever possible to extend East Verona Avenue into this neighborhood. But you're spot on with your question. It will negate a lot of that land around there, as that brown and probably make it blue.
Additional feedback from the Plan Commission. Commissioner Powers, and then Commissioner Tucker-Long.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I agree with that last comment. Just kind of looking at the screen that you're showing with how inside the brown it is. What does ACS do? What's their line of business?
Mr. Sayer?
They're an engineering manufacturing company. So they employ about 50, 75 people, but it's an engineering firm.
Yeah, my thought was if we continue to have more and more engineering firms and kind of large kind of industrial looking buildings there, it's going to be a weird mix to go visit your parents, or to, you know, to have someone go to a home there. It wouldn't feel very homey if there's not any parkland or anything like that around, if you're just between a bunch of metal corrugated buildings.
Commissioner Tucker-Long?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned too. We have a limited amount of non-residential area to build up businesses in Verona. And I know we have, you know, seen a lot of plans to sort of convert non-residential areas into other things. So I guess I'd kind of like to see if we are going to convert this to non-residential. And I completely agree with Commissioner Powers that, like, I mean, taking your relatives to a home in an industrial park seems, I don't know, that just seems weird. But, you know, if we are going to do that, I'd like to take a look at where can we move that non-residential land as sort of a swap, so we're not losing non-residential land.
Mr. Sayer?
I don't have a good answer for that. We've looked at that before when we talked about the Southwest kind of proposal. And that was a similar, obviously staff made similar comments on that development in that area, just because it's on a state highway. It's on a typical diamond interchange. It's one of the, well, it's the only one we have that it's a typical diamond where it's not skewed or it's not curved in some way. But to kind of answer your question, no, there's not going to be much land you could potentially replace this with, just because as you kind of start stepping back from the highway there, you don't want this to kind of, at least I don't, from a planning standpoint, you typically don't want to push these too far off the highway, because then you start putting trucks down longer stretches of road.
And if I could just add, I've yet to hear from a Verona resident who wants trucks on their residential street. In addition, I guess in line with some of the earlier comments, I think I would be definitely in favor of underground parking, aside from, less impervious surface. I think it's amenity, and if you consider the potential fall risks among the senior population, it's potentially a safety feature as well. And I was happy to see Noel Manor pull it off. I also think that the parkland dedication is key. There's, one, in the interest of fairness between what we required Noel Manor and this facility, and two, and just to make it, as other commissioners have said, a more welcoming place. And just because ultimately, every Verona resident, in my opinion, should be contributing at least a tiny little bit to parkland dedication, just because it makes the city a nicer place for people. But that was the feedback I had. Any other questions, comments, or other kinds of feedback? Commissioner Lidle.
Thank you. I agree with the comments made about this doesn't really exist in harmony with the neighborhood plan as previously developed. I would have to say that I think there was not a ton of thought given to access and the capacity of roads to serve the area, especially north of Wayland, when that neighborhood plan was developed. And so, we don't know overall how the development is going to expand north of Wayland, but I do think this may be an indication for us to go back and take a little more realistic look at what can be served in terms of transportation, potential connections to 18151, and that original designation in the neighborhood plan might have to be revisited, just based on some of the factors that Adam has mentioned here. So, yes, it was part of that neighborhood plan originally, but I don't think we have to feel that we're completely bound by those boundaries that were set out in that neighborhood plan for transition to residential to non-residential, because some things have changed over that time, and we're also learning more, hopefully soon, about how we might be able to serve that in terms of access to 18151.
Mr. Sayer, is the hand up from the applicant, or?
Yes, I think it's the operator who operates the facility.
Did anyone have any questions for the applicant? All right, how about in the interest of providing clarification, if the applicant wants, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes, if there was some things they want to clarify, we can promote them to panelists.
Okay. Tom, you're muted.
There
you go.
All right, learning this technology stuff. I just wanted to comment about the parking. This is assisted living and memory care. Basically, none of our residents drive. We don't feel that underground parking is needed. We don't feel that very much parking is needed generally. The entire building is licensed either as a CBRF or an RCAC. everybody in that building, except maybe for spouses of residents that need care, but everybody in that building needs some level of care. At least that's how we operate our buildings. And basically nobody drives. The most important thing as far as preventing falls and whatnot is to have a safe place for residents to be dropped off by family members or a bus. And we do that at the center of the building. As a matter of fact, if we had underground parking, we would discourage people from using it, especially now. We want anybody that comes to the building to go through the front entrance because of COVID. You know, DHS has requirements that we have to screen every resident, when they come back, every family member, every visitor in the building entirely. So we wouldn't even use underground parking if we had it. We want to channel people through the front door for reasons of both safety and health.
Thank you for that clarification. Any questions for the current panelists? Commissioner Takalon.
What about parking for staff? Could you do that underground?
Again, staff have to be screened every time they come into the building for health, temperature, all the stuff that exists now. We want people to come through the front door, not through the not through a basement or underground parking.
And do you anticipate that screening process being a permanent fixture of how things are going, or?
I do to some extent, yes. I don't think our lives will be, I mean, I expect a vaccine at some point, but I don't know that our lives will be back to what they were 6 months ago, ever.
Further questions for the panelists? Commissioner Takalon.
Sure.
Have you looked at any other properties? Is there a reason why you specifically chose this one, even though it's in the non-residential area? Do you prefer a non-residential area?
We tend to prefer an area with some visibility. You know, share of mind is really important in our marketing efforts. You know, typically, people don't always, there are some people who plan on going to assisted living, but typically the need to go to assisted living comes about due to some health issue, you know, a fall, or someone realizes that their mom hasn't been taking care of themselves properly. They get lost and you know, wander away from home and can't get back to home. There's usually some incident, and it creates typically a pretty urgent need to, you know, quote unquote, find a place to put mom is usually how it's defined. So having some share of mind that we're the place in town, and they think about it and they think it looked nice, and they decide to then, you know, approach us and about them moving in. That's kind of our business strategy. So we like, you know, a place with that's completely hidden in a residential area. We tend not to like.
Further questions for the panelists?
And we did also look at one parcel of land across from the high school, but we couldn't come to a, we ended up liking this better, and there were issues with that economically.
All right, thank you for that clarification. I'm just going to ask, I see a couple of people's other hands up in the audience, but I'm just going to ask the Plan Commission if they had any further questions for the applicants. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next topic. Or if people have feedback, obviously keep providing feedback. All right, seeing no further questions or comments. Mr. Sayer, did we cover everything on this topic?
Yes, I think so.
Great. With that, I am going to move on to item 10, which is discussion and possible action regarding a planned unit development, UD concept plan, for a review of a 2-story, 34,000 square foot multi-phase private school located at 301 North Main Street. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. So the property in question is highlighted on yellow on the screen before you. This is right across from the former high school, current middle school. It's the kind of the vacant piece of land that's just north of St. Christopher Parish. It's also just south of the Silent Street right away. Just want to make sure I didn't lose everybody. I saw a bunch of videos drop.
I'm still here.
I'm still here. I had
Okay.
I had a stretch. This
That's
couch,
fine.
This
Okay.
couch is not comfortable. So
Just want to make sure I didn't drop everybody. Sorry. Okay.
Here, I just have to take a bio.
All right, I'll keep going. Once again, the property is located across from the former high school, current middle school. So it's an 8.4 acre site. St. Ambrose is looking at approximately a 3 acre site that would be used by approximately 156 for 6th and 12th graders. So basically middle and high school students. Surrounding the property, once again, is a Silent Street right away. To the north of that is a cemetery. To the east is a residential neighborhood. But I think, like I said, we're all familiar with the property. Initially, this looks like a planned development process. That's a process that has 4 steps to it. This is step number 2, which is a concept review before the Plan Commission. There is no action tonight. This would then go on to the Common Council for consideration with no action. So the council next Wednesday would consider the concept and then take no action on it, but just provide feedback to the applicants. If the feedback is positive, they would move on to the general development plan, which is step 3 of 4 of the process. That is where there is a public hearing before the Plan Commission. We notify all property owners within 200 feet. And then the Plan Commission then makes a recommendation to the council on the general development plan. The general development plan provides the zoning entitlements. The last step is the precise implementation plan, the PIP. Once again, we have a public hearing before the Plan Commission. They make a recommendation to the Common Council. Along with this as well, there's most likely a land division would be necessary, and then also a rezoning. The property is currently zoned neighborhood residential. The property needs to be rezoned to public institutional. That's our typical, government institutional zoning classification that we utilize for these types of uses. There was a neighborhood meeting that was held on July 20th at Microsoft Teams. 75 people attended that meeting and had various questions and comments for the applicant. That was a meeting that was held by the applicants, not by the city. I know there are many city officials there, but that was a neighborhood meeting that staff had recommended the applicant hold. Comments we received at that meeting or elsewhere was regarding drainage, snow removal, and flooding, potentially increased traffic, parking, the lack of on-site parking, and the potential for kind of parking to overflow in residential neighborhoods. Some of the kind of similar questions and comments that we received tonight regarding the floor plans, no cafeteria, where is the extracurricular activities, where are they located, kind of we had a petition that was included within the Plan Commission submittal as well, kind of recommending that the project be vetoed. All the comments that we received by July 29th were in the packet. We did receive several emails after the packet was completed. We did forward off some of those when we requested to forward those off to the Council and Plan Commission. But we did, after the packet went out, we received 14 additional emails in support of the project, and we received 1 additional petition that was in opposition of the project. So bottom line is what was in the packet was what was submitted to us by July 29th. And we do have additional information that just didn't make the packet because they had to go out. So the project itself, it's a 3-phase project. First phase will be approximately 12,000 square feet. We have a capacity for 150 students. In general, it looks like the proposed building would meet the bulk requirements. The building is in the red on the screen before you. The parking lot is obviously north of that, and then there would be an access point off the existing Silent Street right away, and then with a potential access point off Silent Street on the east, which would be a fire lane and access control for emergency situations. Silent Street has been talked about significantly over the years. In the 2009 comprehensive plan, that plan recommended the extension of Silent Street Ultimately, in 2014, the city did complete a downtown redevelopment plan. As part of that, Silent Street was discussed extensively. And in March of 2014, the council approved the language in that plan that basically stated the extension of Silent Street roadway to Main Street shall be removed from the plan. So there was a significant amount of neighborhood opposition when the downtown plan was adopted. And initially we had looked at potentially trying to extend Silent Street to Main Street. I think partially due to opposition of the neighborhood, that was removed from the actual downtown plan. The applicant, as part of this, is not extending Silent Street, but is providing a connection kind of both on the east and the west side. As part of this is, as the applicant explained, there was a traffic impact analysis that was reviewed by the city's traffic engineer. I should point out the city's traffic engineer, Jess Billmeyer, is here tonight. If there are questions regarding traffic, he'd be happy to answer those. As part of this, they did review kind of the traffic on here, and they worked with Jess on that. As they took a look at this, I think this is kind of the latest concept that kind of came up. I think the initial concept had the access initially sharing the access point here with St. Christopher on the south. Ultimately, access was moved to the north here. I know the applicant has raised the concern that they're not able to share that access with St. Christopher. Some of the comments from staff is, I think our preference and our desire would to see a shared access point to the south with the church. And we make that comment because we're concerned about additional access points onto Main Street. And I think from our standpoint too, if there's a way to utilize the existing parking lots, especially since that parking is vacant during the vast amount of these of days, it'd be better to share that parking versus to create additional impervious surface in the area. So that is the kind of the preference from the applicant, from staff. If the Plan Commission and Council are comfortable with the access point, having an additional access point for this development, our recommendation or requirement, I guess, would be that the private drive shall be removed from the Silent Street right-of-way. Putting that in the right-of-way would potentially impact any long-term plans that we have for this area, whether it be a bike path or whether it be at some point there was a change of opinion and we wanted to extend the road. We wouldn't want to be impaired by that driveway being within the right-of-way. So from our standpoint, our preference is to share the access to the south with the church. I know the applicant has indicated that's not possible with the church, but we'd still like to see that as an attempt to reduce the number of cuts we have into Main Street. As of right now, the applicant is proposing 75 parking spaces. I think we need some additional information from the applicant as we kind of look at capacities here and look at kind of potentially how many drivers we have. I think if we're going to have a standalone parking lot that isn't shared, we're going to take a close look just to ensure that we're not causing any parking to spill over into the neighborhood or spill kind of off-site. So that's something that we're going to have to take a very close look at and most likely get some additional information from the applicant on just number of employees, number of students, and kind of number of events and types of activities that are planned for this property. They do have a bus and car drop-off location at the kind of main entrance to the building. They would be providing, as part of this, sidewalk and pedestrian connections. There's a bike path connection. This area of the city is already kind of used as a natural bike connection between the schools and the library to the east. I think that bike path would kind of further cement the fact that kids are already and parents and adults are already walking that area as well. Timeline for this project is potentially having the applicants looking for their approvals and like to be completed by the start of September of 2021. That's the start of next year, the school year. So not this school year, but the following school year. So that is kind of their tentative plans for that. Conceptual floor plans were provided within the submittal. I think those are included in the packet and were provided to the Plan Commission. There's administrative offices, potentially 3 classrooms on the first floor. Majority of the classrooms are on the second floor. Exterior renderings were not included in the submittal. So we don't have any comments on that at this point. We'll need those if in any future submittals. The open playground to the east is in phase 3 of that. It's something that maybe should be discussed further with the applicant of just once again getting some additional details on, kind of where are the kids going to go and are there actually outdoor areas or just what's the plan for that? That was also a question and comment as well from one of the speakers tonight. The applicant is proposing a certified survey map as part of this. They would create a new lot to kind of house the existing church and then the proposed St. Ambrose Academy. Generally, staff doesn't have any concerns with kind of subdividing this property. I think as the Plan Commission is aware, we received extensive public comments. I kind of real quickly went through those. Those were included in the packet. I think the big thing from staff is, we need some additional details on the project. I think this is probably acceptable from a concept standpoint, but in order to complete a full review, obviously we need additional details on the operation of the school. We'd also need kind of design details on the building itself. I think our desire continues to be, looking at that access and looking at the kind of the connections here. Our desire from a staff level standpoint is to have that shared access to the south. Like I said, I know the applicant has said that's not possible at the church, but that is still kind of our desire to hopefully get those shared as well. Obviously, the applicant is here tonight. They'd be happy to answer any questions to the Plan Commission. Once again, staff is here. Carlos Fisher, the city engineer, is here, along with Jess Billmeyer, our traffic engineer. So if we have any stormwater questions, if we have any traffic questions, we'll most likely call them to assist. But with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, we're still in the feedback phase. Before we get into it, Mr. Sayer, can you address the gentleman who had two questions during public comment? I think one was regarding the floor plan and the cafeteria. And then and maybe the second one's more of a question for the applicant regarding whether they have an agreement with VASD on using the fields.
Those are really quite detailed questions, talking about the cooks for the kitchen, using existing fields. That's a question for the applicant on the operations of it. That one I don't have good answers on that one. But that's a pretty detailed question that staff wouldn't have at this phase.
Okay. I guess maybe we should bring the applicant in to answer questions first. I think that's, if that works. I see.
His hand is up.
Sorry.
I'll promote Grant in. Grant, you're muted.
Muted.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
The things aren't there and then they show up. It's like, okay. With regard to the cafeteria question, I can see where that would, on the floor plan that you had up, there's a area, what we call a breakout area. That generally is our space for, multiple large group. Part of the thing to understand with regard to us as a school is that we're a classical curriculum. So some of the things that you might see in a public school or a more traditional school don't necessarily hold true. So we have small classrooms. So we have a smaller footprint. It's not needed. Right now, we presently are in the education wing at St. Thomas Aquinas in Madison. It's not even close to a school type of situation. As far as our green space uses, we use whatever green space is available. So that's part of our point about just making sure that we maximize the available green space within our footprint. The last question, if you bear with me for a second. Using the athletic fields, we've talked with the school district, but that's like anybody else who would want to use school property. You have a contract, you have rules, regulations. So I don't think that would be anything different than anybody else who uses school property. And again, it's only an exploratory because the school district themselves don't really know how they're going to be using that property in the future. And in talking to the superintendent, I promised him we'd wait till next year to actually have that conversation so he could get through building his new high school and moving 3 schools around. Is with regard to the question with regard to the parishioners, I think you just should talk to Father Scott about that because he can speak to that. He was smack dab in the middle of that whole process. And with regard to the idea of there being, much secrecy, to first order, we're not in a position to speak publicly about it until the parish is on board with it. So I don't think there can be this question of public secrecy. As soon as we were basically ready to do a public meeting, we did. So I think we're just going along the process, trying to, like I said, be good neighbors and figure out, you know, how to answer the questions and find out what the questions are. So.
I guess I have a follow-up question. Mr. Sayer talked about the inability to have a shared entryway, but you know, in regards to both traffic and parking, I guess why can't you share with the church? I mean, and forgive my ignorance necessarily of.
No, that's fine. You know, strictly speaking, I mean, there isn't, right? I mean, you could do that. The question has to do with the fact that if you have to, even though we're a Catholic school and the parish is a Catholic church, we are two separate entities. We're our own 501c3. We operate independently. We don't get any financing from the church. We raise all our own monies through tuition and benefactors. You know, over 50% of our students get financial aid. It's, you know, you kind of have to want to go to our school to be there. So the question isn't, no, could we? Of course we could. But the fact is, from the parish's point of view, you know, you're certain buying into a certain kind of thing. And so, you know, we've been in business, if you will, for 18, 19 years. And, you know, we constantly, like any business, are looking at, okay, how are we staying in business? How do we keep ourselves marketable? And, you know, what happens if? And so one of the what ifs is, well, what if we fail? So if we fail, now the parish has this building next to them that they have to deal with. And maybe they don't want to necessarily sell it. But if it was a possibility, well, now they're in a position where they have a building with somebody that they have to share. It's not a question of whether they want or not. And so just their own autonomy, they're trying to keep that option open. And again, you know, that's their decision, not ours. You know, we're open to whatever they would like to do. We've been talking with them, you know, well, for months, since January. And so, you know, this was one of their kind of like non-negotiables. And so that's one of the reasons why we worked so diligently with the traffic analysis to make sure this could work. So that's really just what that is about.
Okay. Other questions from the Plan Commission for the applicant? Since no one's raising their hand, I'll just, I guess, I understand what you said about obviously needing both parties to come to an agreement. But I mean, I know in the past the city's encouraged, you know, shared parking agreements between totally different business entities, and they found a way to make it work. And I just feel like, you know, if we're looking at the impact of the site, we're looking at traffic on Main, that it would help kind of minimize some of the potential issues around this site if it was shared, you know, both from a perspective of less impervious surface, as several people have brought up about, you know, they're worried about flooding. You know, the more parking lot you build, you know, the more potential you have for flooding and things like that.
I'm an engineer too, so I understand, you know, making consensus and figuring out compromise. It's short of saying the parish has to come to grips with that. If they can, we can work with them. We're pretty malleable. Our bar for success is not very high, and so, you know, if that's a possibility, we're more than willing to talk about it. I just think that's really not in my hands. That's, I guess, is the point. I'm not going to disagree with you because it makes sense. To put even a finer point on it, we only have 3 acres. And if I can get rid of a whole bunch of parking and drive aisle and everything else, I get more green space, right? I can't go out when we use it up, make more green space. So all I can get now is a greatness for me. You don't have to convince me about the goodness. I'm just saying, working within our constraints, the probability of that happening is very low, even though the likelihood of it, working is very high.
Got it. Last chance for questions for the applicant before we move back to general feedback. Commissioner Hankert, I think I see your hand.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk here about traffic. What does your existing facility, how many students do you have now compared to what you're proposing? And what kind of parking do you have now? And has that been sufficient?
Yeah, again, a lot of this information, in fact, all of this information is in our traffic study. The thing to understand is we generally have large families, so there's quite a bit of carpooling. Besides, the other thing is that we draw people from the entire county. We have people coming from Monroe, from the north, from the south, literally from the entire county. And so there's a lot of carpooling that goes on naturally. And then I've got larger families to begin with. So there's a lot of siblings. So the actual cars that are on site during the day are actually, if you figure you really only have juniors and seniors driving, right now we have nominally 110. It's roughly half 6 to 8 and half 9 to 12. So if you just say it's 120 for math's sake, that's 60, and half again for the juniors and seniors, it's maybe 30 students. And most of them, vast majority of them don't drive. I mean, they just don't have a car. And those that do are coming in with their schoolmates. So our numbers are generally lower than you might imagine. I think, we see, depending on everything going on, because it's a totally crazy school situation, 5 to 10%. So 110 now, you're looking to have 120. We'll see how that works out. That's kind of the growth rate. And really they're phased, to be perfectly honest, our phasing, it says phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, but in reality, probably the next phase would be a gym, just because that offers us flexibility in programming that we could use. And really the middle phase is really when we expand past our that 150, 160, 170 size. So that help?
Yep. Yes, thank you.
Alder Cole.
Question, do you have busing, and are your hours about the same time as the schools in the school district? I'm just wondering, as far as like traffic and congesting in that one particular area is already really bad.
Yeah, no, we don't have busing. It'd be great if you can find me a bus. That'd be great. We'd happy to use it. It's nominally 8:15 to 3:30. It's in the same ballpark of times. Again, our traffic study took that all into account, and with regard to the gaps and where things are, to account for it. And we even mentioned in the study, there's a certain flexibility, because you're at some level, is my understanding, I'm not a traffic person, 5, 10, 15 minutes one way or the other can make a big difference. So, that's even a degree of flexibility we left in the study, depending on how things work. But John Bierbritz is on from here as well. He could probably speak to the particulars of the traffic study.
Should we call him up so to answer it, Alder Cole, or?
Sure, that would be helpful.
Mr. Sayer, can you promote the traffic expert?
You want Jess, or you want John or Jess?
Well, let's go with Jess,
Jess?
since he works for the city. So.
we go. I think I'm unmuted. I don't know why my
Yes.
camera isn't working, but there we go. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
I feel really privileged. I got promoted. I'm coming for you, Adam. So questions about the traffic. So yeah, as Grant mentioned, there was a TIA prepared that had all of the trip generation that the school is expected to have, where they're coming from and going to, based on kind of the addresses that the Grant has from where people are coming and going to come to the school. The main street is a really interesting traffic animal for all of you that have driven along it. The main features that make it interesting are there are crossing guards on either side of the site. So there's a crossing guard where the old high school was, and then another crossing guard up where the old middle school was. So we're not anticipating that those crossing guards are going to go anywhere. They're going to be in place for the new schools. So the crossing guards, in essence, act like a traffic signal. They're stopping traffic to let children cross pretty frequently. And so the traffic guards, in essence, create gaps on Main Street for other driveways to turn in and out of. That said, the crossing guards are also blocking traffic and making long queues that extend up and down Main Street. So one of the things that we talked about with St. Ambrose was to put in some turning lanes into their site to try to get the turning traffic out of the Main Street queues. In essence, we didn't want traffic going to St. Ambrose to make the backups longer on Main Street. So yeah, Grant had mentioned the gaps. This isn't a traditional intersection that we can use our normal traffic analysis for. So we did kind of a unique gap study. They took videos of the current driveway with the high school and measured the number of gaps that were long enough to allow a car to get in and out of a driveway. And the number of gaps is really close to the number of cars that are going to want to use the St. Ambrose driveway. So that was where we had worked with Grant and said, hey, if the times don't work out, can we move 5 or 10 minutes one way or the other to try to increase the, essentially find the sweet spot between the school start and end times that would allow their driveway to operate. In a way that wasn't going to hurt Main Street.
Thank you. Commissioner Tucker Long.
When was the gap study done?
The gap study, I believe, was done in the fall of 2019. So it was pre-COVID. I'll see if I can find it while we're talking.
We'll do Alder Cole and then back to Commissioner Tucker Long while Jess finds the study.
I was just wondering if you think it would be important to redo the traffic study, considering the patterns will probably change a bit, considering the demographic of those schools is changing a lot. With Badger Ridge becoming an elementary school, obviously there's going to be a lot more cars going in and out of there because a lot of people drive their elementary kids to school, especially in cold weather. So I don't know if it might be post-COVID and new demographics would be important to conduct a new traffic study in the area.
Sure. Yep, and the count was taken on November 14th of 2019. I guess late fall of 2019. But yeah, that was another feature of the traffic study, is understanding that the count was taken when there was a high school and a middle school at this location, and now there's going to be a middle school and a couple of elementary schools. They had done some comparison of just generic trips going to high schools and middle schools, and they're expecting that traffic going to the schools as a whole will go down a little bit with the traffic shift. So the idea was the count taken in 2019 would be conservative. There would be more traffic going to the schools than we would anticipate with the swap over. We didn't know how much less So we kind of kept the same high school gap times.
Commissioner Tucker Long.
Was the gap study done when M was under construction? Because I know a lot of people were avoiding M during construction last fall.
I think M was wrapping up their construction activities around Thanksgiving, so it would have been, you know,
So it would have been right before they were done?
Correct, yep.
Okay. So, yeah, so I'm with Alder Cole because, I mean, yeah, the demographics of the schools are changing. I worry that there's going to be more different kinds of traffic there because elementary school kids are going to want to be dropped off in the front, whereas high school kids were parking in the neighborhood or, you know, coming from various other directions and not necessarily going into the front. I don't know. We'll just have to see how that all works out. I just know those neighborhoods were all parked over. And so they wouldn't necessarily have been driving in front of the schools like these cars would need to.
Sure.
But also,
Grant?
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I was
Grant.
just gonna say, we part of our thing is we're leveraging, I spoke with the superintendent, they gave us permission to use the data that they took. So the data that they're using, they're basically coming back around this fall to do another traffic study themselves. So we kind of get one for free, so to speak. So we used the data that they took at the end of the construction, because that was when they took theirs. So I'm not quite sure. I'm pretty sure the construction was over, but you'd have to confirm with them. Again, the idea is they're going to do another one anyway, and we knew that, and so we kind of try to fill in the blanks. That's what we did with our filming stuff and looking at what was going on, which certainly was after the construction was all done. So.
Commissioner Lytle, thought I saw a hand.
Thank you. I think this is good information. I know there's a lot of other concerns the neighbors have raised that I think are warranted, but I do think at this stage, focusing on traffic, focusing on access, you know, conformance with what's expected of this zoning area, stormwater, drainage, that kind of thing. But while we're on the topic of traffic, I think Jess called that section of North Main Street unique. Unique is the most charitable word I could come up with. Driving there around school time, there's this transition from probably around Harriet to north to where the entrance to the former high school is. That people sort of invent a left-hand turn lane that's just becoming a left-hand turn lane. There's a lot of confusion from motorists. And so, you know, again, I'm not a traffic engineer, but as many challenges as the city has with traffic on North Main, and as few opportunities as we have to gain some right-of-way, I would be really reluctant looking at this project to not find a way to, from Harriet north, to gain some right of way, to establish some turning lanes, to address flow and safety and all the things that are a challenge already, whether it's a high school or a middle school, let alone turning actions going to the east in addition to the west. So, you know, I don't know if Ms. Fisher or Jess have comments on that right now, but I do know for future stages, I think it's almost a requirement that we line that entrance up with the entrance to the high school or former high school. And there may be a situation where that's not necessary, but above and beyond that, gaining some right of way on the east side of Main Street to allow for some better traffic lanes and turning lanes, I think is something we really can't pass up here.
Other I'm sorry, Grant, did you have something, Dad?
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, Father Scott should still be on. I mean, he can speak to it since he's from the parish. So, I mean, if you wanted to ask him his opinion on that, because all of the stuff that you're talking about is outside of our area. So I'm not really in a position to say one way or the other how it could be done. I mean, we really were just operating within our sphere.
Commissioner Lytle?
No, I appreciate that. And I know you're trying to get lots of constituents and parties in a row. It was more a comment to city staff in terms of how we review this. And, you know, you may have already gotten similar advice or not. I'm just saying from my perspective, it would almost, I don't see similar to Grant's comment that, you know, they hope that they're a long-term tenant of that building. But the city, we have to think about who might be the long-term tenant of that building if there's not a St. Ambrose there, and what opportunity have we missed to improve traffic and access on North Main with this project, given that there'll be some new development there potentially in the future.
I'm gonna ask one more question for the applicant, and then maybe we'll move to general discussion. But this, I'm circling back to a question that was asked during the public comment. I think there was an additional question about where the cooks or cafeteria staff would come from for the school. Would they come from the church, or?
Yeah, that's a rumor. Usually they bring their lunch, and that's what that breakout area on our first floor is. We generally break it into junior high and then senior high lunches. It's just the normal way we do it. So it's a group cold lunch, nothing too crazy. I don't know why we would be at the parish. The main reason why we want to be near a parish is sacramental. I mean, as Catholics, we want to be near the church, and so, you know, going to mass, having access to the sacraments, those kind of things. That's what's important, not the lunchroom.
Gotcha. So just since it was asked, then basically it would be students would bring in a cold lunch, and it would just kind of be taken care of on site. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant before we give them a break? All right. Seeing no other hands, thank you very much for helping answer those questions. We are on to general feedback on the project. Do planning commissioners have general feedback on the project or questions? I'll while you guys are thinking of stuff to ask or say, I will just say I was part of the council when we talked about the Silent Street extension, and I opposed opening it up then, and I still oppose it. And so I'm looking at the kind of the plan right now for the access control site. And to me, like I said, I guess what I said earlier in regards to the question, I would, you know, if this went through, I would rather see the church and the school share parking lots, just because it's less impervious surface, reduces chance of flooding. But if the school did have its own parking lot, I would rather not see any access to Silent Street. And I also have a question, I think for Ms. Fisher, regarding the flooding that some of the neighbors have mentioned. Is there something that could be done on this current site that would reduce the impact? Because as several people have noticed, between the buildings and the parking lot, if there's more impervious surface, I'm worried that flooding could get worse, which we definitely don't want to happen.
Yeah, so I was looking at the site on the city GIS. It looks like the whole east side of the site is lower, so it's very flat in this area. And it looks to me like the church parking lot basically sheet flows to the east. It looks like there's a flume that was maybe put in on the northeast side of that parking lot when I look at the aerial. So, you know, when they developed the site that's north of this, you know, part of the reason that we have the regulations that we have today is that you need to manage stormwater that's running off from your site. And so what I would say is that we would not, as part of the review, we would make sure that they're not making things worse. They have to deal with their own stormwater. But to me, it looks like some of the issues may be more on from the church property. And that's just because at the time, there weren't the same types of regulations. So, unless there's a way to pair up and get, some sort of treatment area that could deal with this low spot, I am not sure if that could be fixed as a part of this project. That would have to, it wouldn't be on their property. So my feeling is that, we'd look to not make things worse, but I'm not 100% sure we could fix that existing issue because it's not on their property. That's what I can see right now.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And if I can make a general comment, I know sometimes people complain about regulations, but I think, especially in regards to stormwater, like they protect adjacent property owners and they prevent people's houses from flooding. And I think, I'm not, the weather patterns have changed and, if people met the past regulations, then they were fine. But, I do think it's the kind of thing that can help protect the community. But anyway, other questions, comments, or other kinds of feedback? Commissioner Powers.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I agree with your previous comment. If we don't move the access point and the parking lot, the plan to kind of team up with the Verona Area High School or the Verona Area School District, I guess, to use some of their green space, if that falls through, because it sounds like it's in the very beginning stages of discussion, that falls through there doesn't seem to be much of a backup plan on site, other than obviously gathering around the pond that's already there as city property. I don't know what they would do for outdoor space. They've kind of covered over the entire thing, and it sounds like it's not necessarily their number one way of doing it either. But I do think it puts them in a tough spot going forward if they don't have any backups.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Tucker Long.
I know he said they don't have a lot of people driving, but he did mention that people were carpooling, and coming in and things like that. And, obviously they have to have staff there as well. So I'm just worried that it's not enough parking. Especially, if the school grows, they really don't have anywhere to grow. So I'd hate for, I'm not sure if he said they were looking at like 5 to 10% growth and things like that, but that's quite a few students. If we could be running out of parking really quickly.
Other questions, comments from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Hankard.
Well, similar to the question I asked of the applicant, is there another school in the greater Madison area that is similar in size and scope? Queen of Peace, whatever, I don't know them all. And are they overflowing? Are they parking in the neighborhoods over by those schools? It's hard for us all to just sit here and wonder what this is going to be like. I went to Catholic school. I know the people do come from all over, so in that sense they drive, and they probably do carpool, but we just don't know. So is there a good example school that we could look at? For question, I guess just a general question that maybe the applicant could dig up some information for us.
Mr. Sayer, can you, assuming you don't know anything off the top of your head right now, can you follow up on that one? Or
I don't know unless Mr. Billmeyer knows something off the top of his head of a school. I know the school already exists, the St. Ambrose Academy. They have a current location in Madison. I'm not sure, Jess, did you getting that data as part of your analysis? And you're muted, Jess.
Thanks for that. No longer promoted. Yeah, there was information included in the traffic study about the current St. Ambrose parking. So they have, looks like about 15 staff cars, a total of about 60 cars. Total cars parked for the day was 26. And there must have been some division because you can't have a third of a car, but yeah, 26 and a third cars parked for the day. at the current site. This was based on a students of 112.
Mr. Ankerd, any follow-ups?
Well, I mean, thank you for that, but and I mean, are we making a problem that doesn't exist here? Why would they have more cars in Verona than they have in Madison? I don't think they would. And if they expand, you could expand the numbers accordingly, and either they have the capacity or they don't. That said, I still think obviously the idea of sharing with the church in some way, shape, or form, be it a long-term lease, and then maybe if the school stops becoming a school, the church gets out of their lease, and then it's incumbent upon the new user of the facility to deal, which might be difficult. But yeah, I mean, I've half the town picked their kids up in that church parking lot from the high school. I mean, we've all used that in ways we shouldn't have, perhaps. But it's a lot that does sit empty a fair amount of the time. Thank you.
Mr. Sayre, I believe we have Father Scott with his hand up. If he had something to clarify or to answer a question, I would could promote him to panelist.
Sure, I can promote him.
Okay.
Thank you. Just when we began these discussions, they began back in January and I arrived in March. We had a hearing with our parish at large, and I believe there were 60 people that arrived to that, and which we had to check off a number of things to make it even a possibility for St. Ambrose to approach us. And one of those concerns was separate parking, and whether it's from the parishioner standpoint of maybe previous use of their parking lot by a previous school in the neighborhood, which might have happened, but not to go there. But one of the things is just, yeah, we're looking to sell the property to St. Ambrose to be two separate entities, both the church and the school. And the school runs completely separate from St. Christopher, except for the sacraments, which Grant touched on. One of the things in regards to running a parish is there are funerals from time to time in which we would consume or use the entire parking lot. Then also St. Christopher has a elementary school building there. The school closed in the 80s, but over the last 3 years, we've been making steps. We have a K-4 program. We had a co-op program that was in there over this last couple of years. They've since moved out, but we have families beginning to assemble and to maybe move that elementary program back forward. And so with St. Ambrose nearby, certainly that takes care of 6 through 12. And we would be open to the idea of reconstituting the elementary school, which would be K through 5. And so then our parking lot then becomes used during that day, and again, we would hesitate. There'd be a lot of parishioners, but certainly in my view of looking out for the parish's good and their needs, I would hesitate for that even to be a part of the conversation going forward.
Thank you for that clarification. Any additional questions? Oh, sorry, did you have something else?
I would just like to touch on, I know in the packet they said a lot of things about secrecy, and I think it's just a lack of maybe information getting out during this COVID time period. These conversations began in January, and to know that the parish is very much supportive of St. Ambrose. So we've had our leadership team, which is 17 people, finance council, parish trustees, which are legal representatives for the parish, and a couple of parish members at large, a full 17 of us agree with this project after looking and vetting all the details and what this would entail for the impact of the parish, but also the importance of desire to have St. Ambrose nearby in the community of Verona, the positive impact it has on a parish to have a Catholic school near the parish, but also these students, just their impact in the community is, it's tremendous. So I can't speak highly enough of them and support them enough.
Thank you. Any additional questions for the applicant, as long as we got him on the panel? Seeing no hands, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
We will continue on with general feedback. Any other questions or comments on the concept review? Alder Cole, then Commissioner Lytle.
Say, in general, I've received so many emails on this topic, mostly in support, and most of the emails have detailed how wonderful the students are, how much community service they would bring to our community, and how, you know, it would bring new families into our community and like shopping at our businesses and whatnot. So I think there are a lot of upsides to this, but there are a lot of things that we have to weigh as far as, yeah, like the traffic and environmental impact and things like that. So, I mean, I want to take my time to weigh all the options and get another traffic study done, get more information before we really start making solid decisions on this.
Commissioner Lytle.
Thank you. I think Alderperson Cole pretty much summed up my overall view on this. I realize it's not appropriate for us to think of these two Catholic organizations as being the same thing. But at the same time, we have a landowner in the parish and a potential development via the school. And I just think we need to make sure we're expecting the same level of cooperation or coordination between those two organizations the same way we would as if it were two private parties planning a development like this. So, I think the kind of questions we're asking about, finding a way to make shared parking work where it can, shared access, some potential minor modifications to the right-of-way with the parish to facilitate traffic for the school and for, just overall downtown traffic. I don't think anyone's asking more of these two organizations in terms of coordination, but just understanding that expecting the same level of coordination and cooperation as we would see between two private parties with a development like this that's requires a land sale and some conditions of that. So, and similarly, I think there are a lot of other concerns neighbors have raised that do need to be addressed as more information is available. But I think from a Plan Commission standpoint, we've hit on some of the key ones, at least here tonight.
Additional questions or comments on this project? Seeing no further hands, Mr. Sayer, can you give us a brief timeline on what the next steps would be?
Yeah, next step is it will go to the council meeting next Wednesday. So it will be discussed by the council. Once again, just concept only, no action by the council, but just a conceptual review. And then based upon that feedback, we'll go back with the developers and see where we're at that point.
And then did you get enough feedback from the Plan Commission regarding this topic? Did we miss anything or did we cover everything?
I think we're good. Thank you.
All right. Unless I don't see anyone else waving at me. So I'm going to move on to the next item in the agenda, which is item 11, adjournment. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
I move we adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Tucker Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Cole. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And we are adjourned at 8:51 p.m. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, everybody.